What is up, guys? It's the Sound Alchemist, part of One Mind Syndicate, and today we're back to talk about Warhammer 40K. So I believe it was yesterday that we have the Iron Warriors unveiled that were previously kind of showcased to be coming up soon, and here we have the Iron Warrior, the Warsmith, Kravik Morn. So Morn is a very interesting character in that he is one that has been blessed by the graces of Perturabo. We know that Perturabo, for the most part, doesn't really respect any of his commanders. However, we've seen that Morn has gained his favor. So let's go into the article and see exactly what lore we can get. So it begins by saying that Kravik stands out as a particularly callous and brutal warlord. He does not possess the arrogance and lethargy of those veterans of the Long War who fought at the gates of Terra, having been forced into service a mere 2,000 years before the Great Rift tore across the galaxy. And it took him only 500 before his natural gift for devastating headlong assaults secured him a place amongst the Iron Warrior Warsmiths. Long years of fighting in the deadliest frontal assaults unimaginable has turned Kravik's body into a siege weapon as powerful as any tank or demon engine, all built around an ancient suit of cataphractic Terminator armor. He calls it his Iron Mantle. It bristles with weaponized mechatendrils and augmentics slaved into the armor's mind impulse unit, though none are as deadly as Last Argument, his personally crafted thunder hammer that crackles with infernal power. As the Warsmith sets out into his latest grand conquest, the legions of the Iron Warriors march implacably at his back, decked out in their distinctive utilitarian take on Chaos Marine's corrupted armor. And basically what they're saying is that there will be new upgrade sprues for the Iron Warriors as well. So if you ever wanted an Iron Warriors army, this is going to be the time to do just that. And of course, that's all we have for now, so more information will be coming soon. But for the most part, this looks like a very imposing, very beautiful model. I can't wait to see what other stuff they showcase for the Iron Warriors. So if you've ever wanted to collect like a Dark Mechanicus army, this might be the beginning of that. Of course, we have Vashdor, so anything Demon Engine, I'm here, all for. So with that being said, let's dive into more lore on the Iron Warriors today.
Before the traitorous Iron Warriors turned against the Emperor of Mankind and allied with the War Master Horus, the 4th Legion was a ruthless and effective loyalist army capable of tearing down any impregnable fortress or citadel that dared stand in the path of the Emperor's will. The first recruits of this unrelenting legion came from Holy Terra itself, the children of the warlike gun tribes, blood cults, and tech enclaves in the surrounding areas of the Euro Plateau of Sek Amrak, a region of ancient Terra that was pacified with fire and bolter during the Unification War. Although this region had rebelled against the Emperor after its conquest, the area rapidly became one of the most stalwart of loyalist domains. Documentary evidence attests that the 4th Legion's gene seed showed an above-average adaptability, and the rate of implant rejections were notably low, particularly in comparison with difficulties in large-scale implantation encounters with the progenioid type, which would not be eliminated until the acquisition of the gene labs of Luna. This advantage meant that the Loyalist Iron Warriors' fighting strength was built rapidly, expanding to several fully battle-ready battalions, while some of the other legions were still unable to reach that battle readiness. The Loyalist Iron Warriors fought first on Terra, breaking down any resistance to the new Imperium of Man. They then moved forward with the Imperial Army during the pacification of the Sol System. Testaments of these conflicts can be found in the surviving frescoes in the Imperial Palace, one of which was the key battle of Mariaged during the Venusian campaign, where the Emperor himself took direct command of the Iron Warriors and broke the back of the deadly Litho-Golem armies of the War Witches. The serried ranks and proud steel banners of the 4th Legion stood high above the crumbling ruins of those mutant abominations. These victories were rewarded with primary resupplies of the newer classes of weapons and engines of war, as they were made available from the Emperor's alliance with Mars. To replenish their ranks, the Loyalist Iron Warriors were also given a short-term increase of Terran recruits that were originally intended for the Emperor's Children Legion. With these boons, the 4th Legion became one of the most numerous of the Legiones Astarte during the early years of the Great Crusade, enabling its forces to successfully split between several early expeditionary fleets. Most notable of these was the 8th Expeditionary Fleet, This force conquered or reclaimed 29 core word system clusters and annihilated several interstellar Xeno realms in a protracted 11-year campaign, which played a key part in the establishment of the Imperium's control of the Segmentum Solar. All were achievements from which it was recognized and commemorated by the Emperor of Mankind. The Loyalist Iron Warriors took from the 8th Expeditionary Fleet the emblem of the Winged Bolt as its first heraldic device and displayed its battle honors with pride, carrying them as Vixalan standards before the dauntless columns of its legionnaires as they advanced into shot and shell across dozens of worlds. As the forces of the Great Crusade went beyond the boundaries of the Segmentum Solar, pushing onward with the Great Crusade's expansion, several sources note that the 4th Legion quickly lost any specific ties to Terra, either by culture or indeed recruit intake pattern, although as it pushed ever onward at the forefront of the expansion, its military formation always remained rigidly unchanged. The 4th Legion's bloody-minded tactical stubbornness came to bear during the Imperial Compliance Campaign on the Forge World of Encaldion in a grueling year-long action. Although victory was eventually achieved, the operation would see the near annihilation of the 8th Expeditionary Fleet's frontline forces in what was arguably a needlessly costly fashion. During this battle, the Legion refused to withdraw from the field after the initial assault unraveled in the face of unprecedented and unexpected counterattacks. They fought on regardless, adhering to the battle plans already in tatters. Nearly 29,000 of their numbers fell in a single engagement before enemy forces were worn down by bloody attrition, including many of the Legion's most veteran units, making this battle one of the most costly of its age. However, the Legion's method of warfare was astonishing. Regardless of circumstance or enemy, the Loyalist Iron Warriors were able to overcome any obstacle or difficulty they faced, applying force of arms alone rather than cunning stratagems or bloody-handed heroics. These combined factors set them out as being increasingly different from many of their brother legions, as by this period of the Great Crusade, most Space Marine legions were now divergent from the basic Terran pattern set as a template during the first muster. This pragmatic, yet effective warfare labeled them as unimaginative, robotic, and even honorless fighters in the minds of certain other Space Marine legions. Conversely, to some within the Great Crusade's high command, these traits were positive factors, making the 4th Legion arguably more reliable in deployment than most of the other esoteric legions, and more ready to meet command from outside their own legion without any complaint. Because of this, the Loyalist Iron Warriors were increasingly used to fight in glorious but vital campaigns of backbreaking attrition and drawn-out bloodshed, and they became in short a workhorse legion, relied upon both for their martial power and their reliability in following orders to the letter. The Iron Warriors followed a simple method of warfare. They commenced every battle with a sustained artillery bombardment, utilizing every weapon at their disposal. The basis of this was a complex fire plan, in which every weapon was directed with the utmost care at the optimum target for maximum effect. Whenever possible, the Iron Warriors would coordinate with the Titan legions to add to their own considerable firepower. This emphasis on artillery and mechanized warfare meant that the Iron Warrior forces often fared better in siege warfare and armored advances towards enemy territory. Whenever possible, field fortifications were used. Iron Warrior doctrines included extensive use of fortifications to occupy the maximum number of opponents while using the absolute minimum number of troops. This in turn kept the bulk of the Iron Warrior Marines fresh and available for assaults, and allowed them to achieve superiority elsewhere. When the Iron Warrior forces launched a planetary assault, they always began with an intense orbital bombardment, which would pressure the enemy into surrender without a single Iron Warrior having to land on the surface. They fought repeatedly in thankless sieges and protracted suppression campaigns, which demonstrated the might of the Legion of Astartes to secure victory, but which carried little renown. They also undertook the garrisoning of worlds too dangerous for any but Space Marines to hold. The 4th Legion had a single charter course whose direction lay in the hands of others, to follow the orders of the Great Crusade, whether it was a task to fight or die. From warzone to warzone, the 4th Legion went without respite or fanfare, taking bleak pride in its largely thankless work. And at last, the Legion subtly changed, just as its formerly great strength in numbers was bled through attrition, and its brother legions outpaced it in glory. With the benefit of hindsight, it is perhaps possible to see that it was during these times, even before they were reunited with their Primarch, that a subtle wedge had been driven between the 4th Legion and its brothers, creating a fracture that would worsen in time.
A glossy black shape exploded from the steam, a lithe figure with a bone-white mask in the form of a skull. Its glossy black bodysuit was studded with injectors and stim shunts, but that was all he saw before it was already amongst them. It moved faster than even an Astarte, for its limbs were a blur of motion as it charged with a roar of hate that struck to the core of every iron warrior within its ferocity. A blade edged in blue fire licked out and skewered Grendel, stabbed home and withdrawn in the time it took to even notice the attack was sent. Grendel dropped with a grunt of surprise as the monster spun away. Gunshots followed it, but its speed was inhuman, its body seeming to bend and sweep out of the path of every projectile. Its sword swept out once again, beheading an iron warrior and disemboweling one of Hanso's ogres. It vaulted over the ogre, its red eyes blazing with killing fire. "Gods of the warp!" hissed Hanso, unlimbering his black-bladed axe. "Avasor!" They surrounded the assassin, clubbing and stabbing, but their blows met only air. Combat stims boosted the Avasor's metabolism to monstrous heights, and its reactions were sharpened to impossible levels. It was indeed a monster spawned in the depths of the Assassinorum's darkest laboratories. A killer, a destroyer, a weapon of ultimate destruction. No sooner had the assassin attacked than the Imperial soldiers clustered around the warp core opened fire. Last bolts and solid rounds whickered through the ranks of the Iron Warriors, who swiftly returned fire, turning the vast chamber into an echoing cavern of reverberating reports. The dreadnought loomed above everything, the barrels of its assault cannon spinning as it prepared to open fire. Grendel picked himself up from the deck with a bellow of anger, a thin line of blood coating his pierced breastplate. "Say what you will about Kadaras Grendel," thought Hanso, "but he is indeed a tough bastard." "Grendel," shouted Hanso, pointing at the defenders, "take them out!" "Gladly," hissed the warrior, slipping the melta-gun from his shoulder. Hanso then turned back to the fray as Grendel gathered iron warriors, corsairs, and the augmented ogre creatures for an assault on the defenders. Hanso then turned back to the battle with the Avasor, meeting its hateful gaze as it fought through the ranks of iron warriors. The fiend screamed as it killed, as though every death simultaneously fed and heightened its hatred. The roar of the dreadnought's assault cannon echoed in the chamber, but Hanso could not risk taking his eyes from the assassin to see how Grendel and his ad hoc assault force fared. As the assassin cut and sliced with his sword, it fired a needle-nosed pistol, blowing out helmets and kneecaps with every shot. Bullets floated past the Avasor, and blades seemed to drift by as it wove its dance of death through the fighters. 7 iron warriors were already dead, limbless, poisoned, shot, or disemboweled, while they had yet to even put a mark on the assassin. Another iron warrior died as the Avasor rammed its sword through the weakest armor under his arm, and clove straight through both of his hearts. Its sword cleared and tossed it aside, cutting a path through its foes as if they were no more than irritants. The shock of the assassin's appearance had broken the momentum of the Iron Warrior's assault in a single heartbeat, and it needed to die. Now. "Quite the killer," said Ecstasy between bursts of shot. "My blood is afire just watching it." "I'm pleased for you," hissed Hanso, watching as the Avasor fought its way towards them. "It's coming for us. We're its targets, no doubt about it." "Oh, I do hope so," said Ecstasy, his expression unreadable behind his smooth-faced mask. The prospect of facing such a highly trained killer did not appeal to Hanso, for he was no illusions as to the ability that he could produce, even against an assassin. Hanso was a fine warrior, but the assassin was on another level of killer entirely. The Blade Master leapt towards the Avasor, his twin swords flashing as he met its charge. "At last," hissed Ecstasy, resplendent in his form-fitting bodysuit of black and silver, a worthy partner to which to caress the blade. The assassin registered Ecstasy's presence and Hanzo watched as Blade Master and Assassin began their ritual dance of death. Etici dueled with twin swords of silver steel, while the assassin fought with but a single blade. Steel shimmered and cut the air. Bodies flowed together. Hanzo knew he would never again witness such a peerless display of skill, and doubted two such skilled opponents had ever crossed blades at all in the long history of the Imperium. As corrupt as he was, Notha Etici was still honored the etiquette of the duel, fighting with blinding skill and speed and finesse. The Evisor fought with no such handicap. Its sole driving force was to kill, and it clung to no such antiquated or restricting notions such as honor or glory. To destroy was its only goal, and that was Etici's undoing. Etici executed a flawless block, spinning on his heel to lunge at the Evisor's groin, but his opponent was no longer there. A spinning kick smashed to the side of Etici's head, sending him crashing to the deck. He rolled to his knees, agile as a cat, and furious at such a blow and even employed in a duel. Etici lunged, but the Evisor dived over his blade, and using his shoulders as a pivot, swung up and over the Blade Master. The Evisor sailed over Etici's head, and a series of glittering needles, wired to chemical reservoirs on its arms, snapped from its gauntlet. The needles punched through the neck seals of Etici's armor, and a lethal cocktail of neurotoxins were pumped out. Not even a warrior touched by the dark gods could resist the finest work of the Officio Assassinorum's venom masters, and Etici howled in a mixture of agony and ecstasy as they set to work on his body. Pink froth erupted from the smooth faceplate of Etici's helmet as he collapsed to the deck, thrashing in exquisite torment. "Incredible!" he shrieked as his back arced one last time. Hanzo heard a powerful crack as Etici's spine broke with the force of his convulsions. At last Hanzo and the Evisor were face to face, and he felt a twist of fear take hold in his gut. The face of the Evisor was the face of death itself, and it flexed the muscles of its shoulders as it advanced grimly towards him. The warriors around him backed away, knowing that to intervene would be the last thing they did. "Just you and me," said Hanzo, readying his axe. The assassin did not reply, its skull mask reflecting the blue light of the warp core, its hate and rage-filled eyes fixed on him with an expression of loathing. Hanzo caught sight of the movement about the Evisor and smiled to himself. Or maybe not, he said, as the newborn slammed into the assassin. The flames and smoke of his landing dissipated, and he saw that, incredibly, the assassin still lived. The newborn space marine was on its knees, the assassin's needle-tipped gauntlet buried deep into its chest. Clear tubes pulsed with motion as automatic dispensers pumped toxins from internal reservoirs. The newborn shuddered in the grip of the assassin's poisons, yet it did not relinquish its grip on the attacker's arm. Held fast, the assassin spun its sword up and plunged it again and again into the newborn's chest. Blue-white light spilled from the wounds, as though the newborn's blood ran with the same light as pulsed in the warp core. Vanis leapt towards the assassin, his lightning-wreathed claws stabbing towards its neck. But without giving any sign it had been aware of him, the assassin twisted in the newborn's grip and blocked his thrusting claws with a dizzying swift parry. It launched a repulse, and Vanis only just managed to throw his other claw up to block. The sword slid between Vanis's claws, and he twisted his gauntlet savagely, snapping the blade from the assassin's sword in an explosion of flaring light. The assassin had no choice but to abandon his weapon, but before he could draw its pistol, a black-bladed axe slammed into its chest, cleaving it from neck to groin. Hissing, chemically and genetically altered blood sprayed all across the Astartes, bubbling on their armor as the assassin fell to the ground. The needle gauntlet tore free from the newborn, and it collapsed, its aberrant flesh fighting to re-knit in the face of such dreadful harm. Even its formidable regenerative abilities could barely survive such lethal toxins, and Vanis wondered if the presence of the Demon Lord was helping undo the damage. Vanis backed away as Hanzo wrenched his axe from the dead assassin, the blade hissing and growling as though angered by the kill. "You took your time," said Hanzo. Vanis ignored him, instead staring at the corpse as it bubbled and seethed with chemical reactions. Its flesh sizzled, and blood smoked with acrid venom as a nightmarish collection of toxins, nerve agents, and viruses flowed through its body began to react with one another. While the killer had lived, that reaction was kept in check. But now... "Get back!" yelled Vanis, and Hanzo looked down at the assassin's body and immediately saw the danger, hurling himself flat as the corpse combusted in an explosion of virulent chemical fire.
Welcome back to another episode of 40 Facts About the 40K Universe. I am your host Gersh1, and today we continue talking about Chaos Space Marines as we get into a demon ship of the Iron Warriors. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. We post Warhammer 40K lore videos every single day. If you have any suggestions for topics, please comment down below. And if you enjoy our content, thank our patrons on Patreon. It is because of them that we can do this. Link in the description if you guys want to support us. But with that said, let's get into 40 facts on the Soul Harvester. A Soul Harvester is like no spacefaring ship in existence. It is a massive spaceborne fortress factory created by the warpsmiths of the Iron Warriors Legion. It consists of a central demon forge surrounded by snaking tentacles of hell-forged metal. These parasitic engines embed themselves deep into a target planet's crust, their boarding tentacles disgorging Iron Warriors into weak points in the enemy defenses. Meanwhile, the roaring furnace at the structure's heart feeds upon flesh, metal, and the souls of the slain in order to spew out fresh demon engine reinforcements from the world's own resources in order to support the heretical Astarte invasion. The insides of a Soul Harvester is a twisted and cramped domain. It teeters between dimensions. Metal corridors pulsate as if belonging to a living being, and in truth, the insides of a Soul Harvester are very similar to a massive spacefaring creature. Each ferrocrete and plasteel wall moves as if attempting to come to life through the ruinous touch of chaos. Leering faces follow the passengers, jealous of their corporeal existence. The screams of the tortured are overshadowed by the otherworldly roars of caged demons waiting to be set free or enslaved inside the bodies of demon engines. Thousands upon thousands of slaves and servitors toil away, running across hallways and launch bays, ever vigilant of their master's whip, or even worse, an escaped demon that could tear them limb from limb. It's hard to tell what is from this world and what exists trapped between the immaterium and real space. Ghosts and revenants perform the same movements over and over again, as if trapped in their own minds, reliving the same action for all eternity. And then there's the loud and thunderous sounds of Iron Warriors training their cultists, prepping them for war. Although to most, it seems as if these chaotic demigods are simply torturing slaves. More of a spaceborne factory than a starship, this metal monster was powered by an immense live demon forge, a product of the Iron Warriors' darkest experiments in metamorphosis and warp engineering. It would be the first such creation to be tested in battle during the Taladis War, launched by Cor Pharaon against the Taladis system in the Veritas subsector. With its vast alpine ranges and city-sized citadel fortresses, the fortress world of Grandask was the most heavily defended planet in the Taladis system, aside from their capital cardinal world of Benediction itself. Its 7 great hive cities provided billions of souls for the Astra Militarum, and its deep reserves of promethium and the super-dense minerals only added to Grandask's critical value to the Imperium, making it an irresistible target to chaos. It would be the Soul Harvester, Skarax Krond, that latched itself to the surface of the planet like an immense parasite, thrusting pseudopods the size of blocks deep into the earth. These snaking tentacles pulverize their way through the rock and stone with siege drills and melta cannons before bursting up from the earth within the walls of the planet's citadel fortifications. Heretical Astarte warriors marched forth, unleashing deadly volleys of bolt-around into the unprepared foe. At the same time, Chaos Knights lumbered from the gatehouses of the Soul Harvester, bellowing oaths of destruction as they set upon the armored formations of the Astra Militarum. Tank after tank was blasted into molten slag, and the arcs of heavy bolter fire obliterated entire formations of the planet's infantry. All the while the Soul Harvester glutted itself upon the aura of death and destruction. Blasted corpses and twisted wreckages of shattered war machines were shoveled into its furnaces, as the Warpsmith, Etrogar, and his Iron Warriors stoked the hellish fires with the souls of the slain. The Soul Harvester spewed out tides of demon engines, from scuttling, spider-like venom crawlers to hulking mauler fiends that galloped into battle, eager to mutilate and destroy. Soon the Loyalists were in full flight, retreating to the polar citadels of Fortress Resolve, where they prepared to make their final stand. Just as the cruisers of the Iron Warriors prepared orbital bombardments that would blast open the last pieces of resistance on the planet, the Chaos Fleet picked up a surge of warp disturbances. Suddenly, 2 enemy capital ships dropped out of orbit. They were black vessels bearing the stark white cross of the righteous Black Templars chapter. Castle and Dramos led a single strike force detached from the Rutherian Crusade, all that could be spared due to the Black Templars' extensive campaigns elsewhere across the Segmentum Solar. Fortunately, Dramos could also call upon the cadres of Imperial Knights from House Morton, commanded by the dour yet ferocious Sir Dirkwold. Dramos scanned the latest tactical cognitation broadcast from the Fortress of Resolve. The situation was grim. The Iron Warriors were besieging the Polar Citadel, pouring demonic forces against the shield wall, while their siege tanks kept up a relentless bombardment. Yet the true threat, Dramos quickly realized, was the Soul Harvester. As long as the Soul Harvester's Demon Forge was operational, the traitors could replenish their forces indefinitely. It was then decided that Strikeforce Dawnhammer would deploy in a decisive attack upon the Soul Harvester. The warriors of House Morton made for the surface of the planet in their fortified bulwark landers, the heavily armored vessels shrugging off reams of flak fire. Sir Dirkwold led a frontal assault upon the Soul Harvester. From the parapets of the Demon Forge, Iron Warriors poured a stream of fire down upon the advancing Loyalist. While the Knights drew the attention of the Chaos Defenders, squads of Inceptors descended upon the Soul Harvester like living comets. Burning through the upper atmosphere and locking coordinates upon the pulsating shell of the Harvester, they struck home with shattering force, breaching holes in the flesh metal carapace with demolition charges, even as they fended off flocks of fire-spitting Hell Drakes. Castle and Dramos led the assault into the heart of the Soul Harvester, battling through the innards of the Iron Monster alongside a retinue of veteran Crusaders. The assault team suffered grievous wounds as the Iron Warriors assailed them at every turn, but in an act of self-sacrifice that would mark their names in the honor scrolls of their order, Dramos and his command squad managed to detonate a cyclonic charge at the heart of the structure. The resulting warp explosion swept through the Soul Harvester, immolating Loyalists and heretics alike, and blasting its assembly halls and factories to atoms. The Soul Harvester convulsed and thrashed its metal tendrils like a wounded animal, but its demonic furnace would not be snuffed out that easily. Dramos' sacrifice brought the defenders of the planet precious time, but the planet's fate still hung in the balance. And those were 40 facts on the Soul Harvester. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, share it with your friends on Facebook, Reddit, whatever social media you guys use. I hope you guys enjoyed listening. If you guys have suggestions, comment down below, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. This was Gershwin with One Mind Syndicate signing out.
Oh, I used to put my